104.7 The Cave. KKLH, Marshfield, Springfield. A proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
Now, it's time for Ned Talk.
If you're looking at your clock and thinking, gosh, these guys are on an hour early, you're wrong. You didn't spring forward. Here we are. Beautiful day in March. March Madness going on. Baseball is back in action. And we are in the studio. I'm Joe Westen, joined by Ned Reynolds. Ned, how are you?
Doing just great. When the sun's out and the temperature is rising, it beats the devil out of that, well, less than blizzard that we had on Friday. But over and above all that, hopefully no more. Please, please. Let's have sun and warmth and good feelings and peace.
John Oliver is with us. How are you, sir?
I'm better. I'm relieved for obvious reasons. And then, as our friends across the pond would say, I'm still a bit cross.
And Josh Roberts is with us, too.
You have friends across the pond?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, hi. I thought Ned was going to say sun's out, guns out.
Sun's out, fun's out.
Or buns out, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, there's so much sports to talk about, and I know you guys are edging to talk about baseball, but we're not going to start there. We're not going to start with basketball. We're not going to start with baseball. We're going to start with football because some big stuff happened this week. Let's go back a few days, and the news came out a little early that Aaron Rodgers has signed a $200 million contract with the Green Bay Packers. And then shortly afterwards, our friends in Denver loaded up all the draft picks that they could, drove them over in a dump truck onto Pete Carroll's doorstep, and dropped them off. And they got the best quarterback on the market other than Aaron Rodgers. What'd you think of that move?
Well, I thought it was extremely interesting in the way it happened, because if there was ever any doubt that Denver was going to get Aaron Rodgers and he was on the hook, then it was certainly alleviated when less than an hour later they get Russell Wilson from Seattle. He was being dangled there for Denver, and I'm quite sure had Green Bay not come up with the treasure chest that they did at the Fort Knox, $200 million, $50 million a year, that I think Rodgers would have gone to Denver. But no. Now, the guy's not an idiot, despite what you might think of him. He's not going to turn that kind of a deal down. $200 million, the richest in NFL history. So he accepts that, says, okay, we'll agree to that. Up, come on, Russell Wilson, get on down here. So Russell Wilson, I think, is more than happy to leave. I don't think he and Pete Carroll were dinner buddies or drinking buddies or Christmas buddies or anything like that. So I think he's happy to get out, and I'm not sure, because Denver unloaded a lot. A lot. 2 first rounds, 2 second rounds, 2 fifth rounds, and their quarterback, Drew Lock, who is, while he's not great, he is certainly an effective quarterback. I'm not so sure they didn't unload a whole lot. It really isn't Drew Lock. It's Noah Fant, the tight end out of Iowa, who is a really good player. And the lineman, and I've forgotten, Shelby Harris? Is that the guy's name?
I believe so, yeah.
Who is also a very fine defensive player. Plus all those draft picks, that's a lot to give up.
What do you think, John?
To piggyback off of what Ned said, what struck me the most about this is the fact, I've heard a lot of criticism of the Broncos, and including Noah Fant, and that I think hurts. It hurts the fans. It hurts that team. But Denver was to a point of such a low with that rabid fan base, and I've been there in Denver. They had to do something. And once the Rodgers domino fell, Russell Wilson will absolutely help that franchise. It's vital. They had to get a quarterback. And, Drew Lock is serviceable, and I don't for one moment think he's going to be Seattle's starter. We'll talk about that later, but it was a desperation move, and they really had to do it, so I don't fault them for what they did.
They got a lot out of that deal, though. I mean, they're going to be able to build a team through the draft, and Denver will not. They're going to have to do it through free agency. Yeah. What are your thoughts, Josh?
Well, I heard a comparison of this to the Herschel Walker trade from the Vikings to the Cowboys, or from the Cowboys to the Vikings, which basically created the Cowboys dynasty because they gave up so many draft picks that's how they got Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman and all that. Who knows what that's going to do for Seattle? I mean, they've got carte blanche for the next year, and so that's really going to help them. But I agree with you. I think it puts Denver in an interesting position because if if they gave up that much just for Russell Wilson. We all know that the quarterback is important, but you've got to protect him. You've got to build a team around him. That's going to be tough for Denver to do. As far as the Aaron Rodgers thing, it is ridiculous to me that they gave him $200 million. He is a player in the decline of his career because he's getting older. It's inevitable that his skills are going to diminish, and they just gave him the largest contract in NFL history. I mean, I think that's a big mistake on their part.
Let's talk about Russell Wilson for a second. He's a guy, I'll be honest with you. When I think about NFL quarterbacks, sometimes I struggle to find his name in my Rolodex of mind. And it's not because I like him. I'm a huge fan of his. But sometimes when I sit and, God, what's that guy's name? What's his name? And it takes me a minute to go, Russell Wilson. That's the name of the quarterback in Seattle. He's had a very good career. He's also been on his ass quite a bit during his career because they've not protected him very well in Seattle. He's going to face the same thing in Denver, but he's a guy that can handle it. And I don't know what you think, Ned. He's top 5 quarterback.
Mm-hmm. I think he makes Denver a marginal contender in the AFC West. I'm not going to say that they're coming up and going to meet the Chiefs nose to nose. They might, depending on how the seasons work out. But I do think it makes him a marginal contender. Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. He's a fine player. His careers at Wisconsin and North Carolina State in college. The reason he doesn't immediately come to mind is the team that he's played for, Seattle Seahawks. Now, he had them in the Super Bowl. Keep in mind, had a win right there in the Super Bowl. Didn't come out that way, but it was right there. The guy is very good. He's also a scrambler. He does and fits into the mold of the lateral movement type quarterbacks for which they're looking now. And I really think he helps the Broncos quite a bit and makes them at least a challenger, a moderate challenger to the Chiefs.
He's got a rocket of an arm, too, for a guy his size. The knock on him when he came to the NFL was that he was too short to be a quarterback, and he's played amazing football. One Super Bowl championship, another should have been Super Bowl championship. Thank you very much, Pete Carroll. You've got something to say.
He is also an outstanding baseball player.
That's right. He is actually under contract to the New York Yankees. Right. Thank you very much. He usually goes to spring training with them.
That's right.
What do you think about Russell Wilson with the Broncos?
Well, you guys, touched on the point that I think is the most telling for Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is a top 5 quarterback. I've never denied that at any point. He's not, I think people sometimes think he's a little bit older than he is. He's still right in his prime for an NFL quarterback. And you both said it best, Ned and Joe. He won that first Super Bowl, and all I remember was Russell Wilson. And for the lack of running Marshawn Lynch on one play, he fell out of favor, and he's been forgotten. And that franchise has backtracked ever since that point. I won't get into my feelings on Pete Carroll, but at the same time, he did tremendous things, and they never helped him. I will counter that Denver will absolutely protect that investment. They will do whatever it takes to make sure he's not on his back all the time. And if you go out and, you look at some of the free agents, somebody that's close to home, Byron Pringle, if you get him with a guy like Wilson, a young, hungry player that might be able to turn the corner, there's options out there like Pringle that could really make that team kind of a Cinderella next year.
Well, a wide receiver hit the market today, Jarvis Landry.
That's right.
He is going to be available apparently via trade from the Cleveland Browns because they've got Amari Cooper in their back pocket right now. What do you think about Russell Wilson with the Broncos, Josh?
Well, I agree with you. He's a top 5 quarterback. If they can protect him, then they're going to be a scary team. I don't think that'll happen this season necessarily. I think because they've put themselves in such a deficit as far as getting more players. But I think, it makes the division. Now you've got Mahomes, you've got Herbert, you've got Russell Wilson, and you've got Derek Carr. It's stacked with quarterbacks.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah, that's my next question. You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, your local live sports talk show. My question to all of you is, who is the AFC West the best division for quarterbacks right now?
As far as I'm concerned, yes.
Yeah.
Unqualified, yes. Because you do have all these young guys. And even though Mahomes has been around now for several years, he's a kid. Good gracious. And, all the others. Derek Carr is the old man, and he's still not very old. Yes, I think that division is the best one for QBs.
What do you think, John?
I think it's absolutely the best division for quarterbacks. If you look at those four, and, we talked about how underrated Russell Wilson is. You look at, poor Derek Carr. That guy's done everything he can to try to help the Raiders win. He's a great, great individual. He's a leader. He just hasn't had the personnel surrounding, and on top of that, most of the personnel, unfortunately, gets brought up on charges around him. So, it's definitely the best conference for quarterbacks.
I don't think John Gruden did him any favors while he was there.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think he coached him too much. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I think those four quarterbacks, you could put them up against any other conference, the four quarterbacks in those other conferences, and they'd probably stand above. I mean, the next one I think about is the Bills and Dolphins and Patriots. Who's the fourth team in that division?
Jets.
Oh, God. Well,
that kind of ends it all right.
Yeah, that kind of knocks them back down.
Yeah,
They've got
Jets,
three really good quarterbacks and then the Jets.
The Jets are like a negative. They take quarterbacks, good quarterbacks away. Let's stay on the quarterback thing. Well, let me touch on this really quickly. Your thoughts, and again, quickly, your thoughts, is Patrick Mahomes still the best quarterback in the AFC West, or is Russell Wilson?
He's not only Mahomes in the West, he's the best in the NFL.
Okay.
I think he's the top flight. Aaron Rodgers notwithstanding, I wish they had played against each other last year, but that never did come to pass. Right. Nonetheless, no, Mahomes is my choice for the NFL, not just the AFC West.
John?
It's Mahomes' title to lose. What I hope occurs from this is that having Russell Wilson in the division pushes Mahomes to be even better.
What do you think, Josh?
I think right now you can say Mahomes is the best. I think with Herbert coming on strong, that guy's got a lot of talent that could materialize in the next few years. And Russell Wilson, I mean, this may be the new genesis for him. He may thrive like he did when they won the Super Bowl. That'd be scary.
If he doesn't have to run 50 yards laterally on every play, Russell Wilson may be the very best quarterback in the NFL. We don't know. We don't really know. He's not protected. He's never been protected, even at the worst that the Chiefs' offensive line has been, and it's been bad. Over the last few years, Russell Wilson has not been as protected. There was another big quarterback move this week. Carson Wentz, that was a big surprise to me, and I heard you guys talking about it, Mike and Ned, when you do your morning sportscast with each other, which, by the way, if you listen to that, because it's awesome, very insightful, I was totally surprised that the Colts gave up on Carson Wentz so quickly. Your thoughts?
I'm not totally surprised. I am utterly astounded. Astounded because when they let him go, who do they have? There's nobody there. They have a couple of taxi squad guys, and that is it. Now, there will be some free agent QBs who they'll have to make a deal for somewhere along the line because they can't rely on the draft. But to unload a guy after 1 year who threw for over 3,500 yards and I think it's 27 touchdowns, if I remember correctly, that's not bad. And it's not his lack of leadership that the Colts didn't go very far. There are other contributing components to that. I thought Carson Wentz a pretty good player.
What happened to the guy that was their quarterback 2 or 3 years ago? I can't think of his name right
Andrew
now.
Luck.
No, not Andrew. Not Andrew Luck. I can't think of his name right now. But he had a pretty decent season, and it seems like he was. They were pretty dead set that he wasn't the answer, and so.
Are you referring to Jacoby Brissett?
Jacoby Brissett. Yeah. That's it.
He's a good player.
He's not the overall leader that you're looking for. And I think, didn't he end up with the Patriots?
I believe so. Yeah. Yep.
He had a pretty decent season a couple of years ago. And really, all they need in that team is somebody to turn around and hand the ball off because they've got such a good running game, such a very good running game.
Yeah. Taylor's going to be an all-time great before he's done there.
So what do you think this does to the Commanders, John?
I think it instantly improves them. I mean, it gives them a reputable quarterback. I mean, if you look at their quarterbacks over the last, 4 years, it has been a committee and it has been embarrassing. So, from Dwayne Haskins to
Fitzpatrick.
Fitzpatrick. I mean, it's the also runs of the league.
This guy that they had, and again, I'm sorry, My brain Rolodex is not working too well these days. They had a kid who played backup for them this year that got into a couple games
from Old Dominion.
Yeah, I was impressed with him.
He's not bad.
Taylor Henneke.
Henneke. Yeah.
That's it.
So your thoughts on Carson Wentz going away?
I agree with Ned. I think it's ridiculous that the Colts let him go when they have nothing. I mean, if they had their eye on Russell Wilson, or if they were, doing a big trade of some kind, it would have made sense. But it doesn't make sense for them to let go of he was probably one of the best players on their team with their running back aside. So I don't understand it unless they're in that mode of let's just, we're going to make money regardless of whether we put out a good product.
Did they get draft picks for that?
I don't think they got very much of anything. I think they got maybe a third-round choice or something like that. It was a very underwhelming
so they're not trading up. Real quickly,
right.
This name's being mentioned in conjunction with the Kansas City Chiefs, Christian McCaffrey. What do you think?
Well, he's a top running back.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. He's tough. He may not have the great breakaway speed that a lot of kids do, but my gosh,
and a great pass receiver.
His record at Stanford was unbelievable, and then what he's done with the Carolina Panthers, I think he'd be a really good running back. Now, there's the key right there, though. Why does Carolina want to unload him? Is it because they perceive that, what's he been in the league now, 4 years? Is he at that 4-year crucible where perhaps he's going to go downhill? They could be witnessing that. The Chiefs have made deals before for top running backs, and they haven't done a blasted thing with the team. I would hope McCaffrey, I should say, is not in that realm, but there's a reason why they're letting him go.
Some wheeling and dealing going on in the NFL. When we come back, we'll talk a little baseball. Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network.
Last couple of weeks, we've been lamenting about the baseball lockout. This week came to an end. Just suddenly. Just after no news, everything got kind of quiet, and then, bang, we're done. We got a deal. We're ready to play. And I'm sure that there's a lot of opinions and thoughts around this table, so let's start sharing those. We'll start with you, Ned.
Well, John says that to paraphrase our cousins across the big pond, I'm a bit cross. I'm not. I am downright grumpy. I think it's the whole thing. The whole episode was so totally unnecessary. A contract that they arrived at could have been resolved by December the 1st if they had sat down with rational individuals, taken some of the acrimony, the animosity out of all of this. They're going to find out that level of thinking does have a detrimental effect with the public, even though they are going to play 162 games and the season's only delayed by a week or something like that. Still, all of what goes on really does not resonate very well with the public, and certainly not with the businesses of Florida and Arizona, where their income or economy has been compromised, maybe not totally, but certainly to a great respect. Now, the settlement of the contract is fine. I think every side got what it wanted. I am very surprised, however, that the executive players, all of whom are very wealthy, I don't give a damn what anybody tells you. They are controlled by the agents. They are agents. And that guy, Boris, of course you can't. He's kind of a Putin-type individual.
Yes.
Anyway, he was advising them to turn it down, and they did. 8-0, they turned it down. So they go to their player representatives, who they have to carry the real power. Well, we're advising you to turn it down. Turn it down? Look at this. Our guys want to play ball. The hell with you. 26-4. It was approved.
That's right.
Owners ratified it 30-0. I think that told the executive committee, you guys better pay attention to what you're doing. You're not in there for a team's representation. You're in there for yourself. And put your ego out in the trash can somewhere. Forget about that and do what's right. And finally, I think we get a deal. I do have problems personally with an entry-level job. Entry-level, earning $700,000 a year. Jiminy Christmas. And don't think that doesn't resonate with the public as well. Anyway, my feelings are, all right, let's get on with the game. Forget about all this, although my fan aspect of things, which is wrong for a reporter to do, has certainly been compromised.
What do you think, John?
Ned repeated my quote, and I'm more grumpy than anything. I just figured I'd try to be, somewhat delicate about it. I had completely stopped paying attention after the last failure before this deal was reached. I didn't know it was done until my older son texted me while he was at school and said, baseball's back. And I thought, no. So I went and looked. I think a lot of this was financially motivated, obviously. I think the owners thought Manfred could do what he thought he could do, which was break the union. That is not going to happen. No matter what you try, you will lose seasons after seasons trying to do so. The thing that gets me is, and I know other sports writers and media members in the nation called for this that were just as frustrated as I did. I posted on my social media that everyone who is upset about this situation needs to cancel their Major League Baseball television package. And I've heard multiple sources say that happened en masse with a lot of people. And don't think Major League Baseball didn't look at that and go, uh-oh, this is a big public relations nightmare. Baseball still did damage to itself as far as I'm concerned. They did lose some people that aren't going to come back because of exactly what Ned said. In the beginning, the owners were being totally unreasonable. And I agree with that. And damn Rob Manfred for what he tries to portray himself as. But the key is, at a certain point, Major League Baseball started kind of edging towards the midpoint. And then the players, no, we're sticking to our guns. I know 50 is between 100 and 5 almost, but no, we want 80. And you talk about that minimum salary, Ned. You want to talk about trying to get sympathy from the wrong crowd. $700,000 a year. We're just providing for our families and making sure the future players are taken care of. You know who the last dullard, even though I'm a fan of his, and this is the worst quote in sports as far as I'm concerned, when the NBA was in its lockout years back, Patrick Ewing came out and said, man, we're just trying to feed our families. Well, Patrick and baseball players, I know you had to accept poverty level conditions, but you might just have to get your Whopper without cheese for a little while. It is such a childish game between millionaires and billionaires. Salvaging the season helped the mass exodus, and it averted what I referred to as crisis mode that baseball would not recover from. They're going to have to do some serious PR, and don't think for 1 minute the fact that everybody's on board with banning the shift, the universal DH, pitch clocks, all of that doesn't have to do with trying to make fans like the game more.
What do you think, Josh? You're not our baseball fan.
I'm not. I'm the casual baseball fan, and I had decided that I wanted to follow baseball a little closer this year, and it kind of took the wind out of my sails when they did the lockout. So I am back to where I was, I think. I'm going to watch baseball, maybe. I'm going to follow it, maybe. But I'm just not. I mean, it's ridiculous to me that these giant billion-dollar generating corporations are fighting over huge amounts of money like that. And it's at the expense of us. Because we, as the fans, I just want to watch baseball. I want to see good baseball. I want to see talent out there. That's the entertainment aspect of it. And it's soured for me.
Going to enhance a little bit of what John said just a short time ago about the appeal to the fans. Now, this is carrying things a little bit to the obtuse side. But there's a lot of cord cutting going on in this country right now. You look at the numbers and you'll see the cord cutting. And I'm making reference to satellite as well. People are going to streaming. Great. You know how many streaming networks carry MLB and the Bally Sports Network? One. And that is DirecTV streaming. And their prices are not much below what the satellite is. Hulu, Fubo,
YouTube TV.
YouTube, They will not invest in it. And why will they not invest in it? Because it would involve them raising their rates to almost the point where people cut the cord for that reason, to lower the rates. The numbers of individuals who want to watch is not very high.
No.
That's true of all sports, though. It's hard. It's hard for those streaming services to put out the money for the sports that cost so much for us to watch and so much for us to see.
I see what I want to see.
Yeah.
College basketball and the NFL and all the ESPNs and all that, but not Bally Sports or the MLB Network.
Correct.
Well, I think, different. Baseball is so different than the other sports because baseball has such a large regular schedule that's unique. I mean, basketball is kind of similar, hockey's kind of similar, but it is very different. And baseball is still very regionalized. And so that's how that regional networks work. And there's big money in that regional network.
But it's not forthcoming from the streaming network.
No, but that's why you don't see SEC network on the streaming services, I believe. Really?
Mine you do, yes.
What do you have?
Hulu.
Yep. Hulu does carry quite a few of them.
Really?
YouTube TV carries the SEC network as well.
The one universal point is they don't carry Major League Baseball.
Yep.
You can't see it.
And Bally has done nothing on their promise to have a standalone streaming service where fans could get baseball in their local area.
Well,
That's
MLB
still
has
in the works.
Has their own streaming service.
Well, they do, but however, for example, St. Louis, all of the Cardinals games are blacked out unless...
Yeah. But to me, that's a major point of what needs to be fixed with the game is the blackout regulations are onerous in baseball. Now, we've discussed this before. I think Josh is a Cubs fan, so we'll just leave him out.
Yeah, leave me out.
You guys, follow the Cardinals pretty closely. I follow the Yankees, and when they play the Toronto Blue Jays, they're blacked out in this market for whatever weird reason that I don't understand because there's really weird blackout rules that need to be fixed with television and Major League Baseball that really need to be addressed. I mean, I don't get it at all.
The most tone-deaf thing that MLB does is they do allow you to watch Cardinals games if you have it, but you have to wait until an hour after the conclusion of the game. What better way to watch a game in the age of streaming information than waiting until it's already over? I'm
the dissenting voice in all this. I've spent about 3 years away from baseball just because I coached and I got really tired of it. I was so excited the other day when I heard the lockout was over, and to me, all is forgiven. I don't really care. I land firmly on against the owners in this deal because they're basically four owners. Four owners were holding up this deal. It could have been made earlier. John argued about the players. I'm going to argue on the other side of that. Four owners said we're not even going to negotiate this one point. And then the other point that I would make to you guys about the $700,000 minimum salary is that a lot of these guys do live in poverty up to the time that they make it up to the Major League Baseball level. And then they're asked to live in a major market. They're asked to get around that major market. They're asked to do all the things that they need to do inside that major market. And look, you're not getting sympathy from me that somebody's getting $700,000 a year, but they have reached the upper echelon of their profession. Okay, just like anybody else, if you reach the upper echelon of your profession, you deserve to be paid the amount of money that somebody's willing to pay you to do that job. If you, Ned Reynolds, you worked at KY3 for years. If somebody came to you and said, tomorrow we're going to put you on Monday Night Football, which is let's just say in its heyday, not Monday Night Football today, on ABC, on Monday nights, and we're going to pay you what you're making at KY3, you'd give them the double bird right away. And people deserve to be paid what they're worth. So I'm going to argue the other side of this. I'm a players guy, always will be.
It isn't the amount, it's the perception.
Yes.
And public perception is what all of professional sports is based on because the constituency is national in that scale. we'll use as an example. If I were to be offered that, I'm one person. And, of course, I have that option of doing it. Mm-hmm. Well, in the case, and they don't have to live there, Joe, furthermore, their per diem, a lot of these guys, they don't even spend that salary. No. They get it in per diem, which is, what, $300 a day or some ridiculous amount like that.
It's a large amount of money. But, again, I do believe that if you make it to the upper echelon of whatever you're doing, you deserve to be paid for it. And the other part of that, too, is nobody here knows the salary that we make, what we do. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big mistake that all major sports make, is that we have to know the salaries. We have to know that so that the other guy knows what the other guy's making, and they can make that much money, too. Mm-hmm. Doesn't make any difference if you go down to, any corporation. I mean, sometimes you do know what those corporations, what the guys at the upper level are making, but
But Joe, to listen to us on the radio, nobody's buying a ticket. They are to watch these people, and the ticket is paid for by us. Mm-hmm. And that goes up every single year and every time that there's a price increase on there. And I'll argue to the death with you on this one. And being 80 years old, I'm going to go before you do.
Here's the ticket that people are paying to listen to us. It's the commercials. We'll be back. We'll talk about the NCAA tournament next on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network.
So much sports to talk about, and we've saved the best for last for a lot of people, and that's March Madness. It's going on right now. The conference tournaments wrap up today. Ned, we were discussing before we went on the air, what happened? The ACC used to be the last one to play. Now they're not anymore.
I think it all depends on television and how the networks
bastards
judge
and
things.
TV.
Mm-hmm. I think you'll find that most of the competition is over by the time we have Selection Sunday. That's what they base it around, because I tell you, the audience ratings for CBS on Selection Sunday are very, very high. And then as the night goes on, then you have the NIT selections, then you have the women's NCAA selections. So they've got it pretty well programmed as to what's going to happen right throughout the night. Each one lasts about an hour. Then you have your discussion periods and so. Anyway, it is for college basketball fans. It's a very big one. As far as we're concerned locally, the Bears will not get in the NCAA. They're just not going to. Hope they get in the NIT.
I do as well.
Lady Bears flamed out yesterday. Whoa, that was not expected at all. I think they will get in. I do. I just have a feeling they're going to get in. They're just too good a team not to. And the Drury Lady Panthers in Division II already in national competition, and they are gonzo. Mm-hmm. They lost yesterday. Grand Valley State out of Michigan knocked them out, so their season's over.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's disappointing.
It is, because they were a national championship contender this year as well as being last year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, John?
This is going to sound really bad, but I think there's a lot of people in my same boat. As far as college basketball goes during the regular season, I do follow Missouri State, obviously. I follow, some of the national teams. I look at the rankings. It has gotten to the point for me, and I'm sure there are others, countless others like me, where I don't really care until the tournament starts at this point. And I'm like a kid again at that point. I can try to sit down and watch, Duke and North Carolina, but I'm going to be like, I'll get bored and I'll start doing other things. When March Madness is on the television, I can't do anything else. I'm the person that's sitting there and like, okay, this game's at break. I'm going to switch over to the True TV. Okay, back to TBS. Who's going into overtime? Who's coming down to the last?
You're one of those guys that drives me nuts.
I just absolutely love, and the atmosphere's still there. That's something that, is still pure. We talk about these labor disputes in baseball. March Madness excitement is still everything it is, because you have kids, 18, 19, 20-year-olds that are pushing their limits and stepping up. And I'm sorry, there's no feeling like a 16 seed beating a 1 that I didn't know I'd ever see in my lifetime.
Only
now I have.
Once.
Yep.
Only happened one time.
But those upsets are what keep you going. I latched on to Oral Roberts last year. Had so much fun watching them.
It's got to be a better way of saying that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, regardless, it's March Madness is the most entertaining postseason.
I think, John, the fact that it's one and done, your season
Correct.
is over. Over. Gonzo, you're out of here if a loss occurs. That's what really makes it so intense and why you see the top-level competition and why you see really rough play.
Yes.
I mean, these officials let them get away with some, it might as well be a football game out there.
Mm-hmm.
Josh, what do you think?
I enjoy the tournament, but you know what I think is interesting? 65 or 66 teams. How many Division I teams are there now? 180?
No, it's about 345. I think it is 345. So.
Really? For basketball? Wow. I guess I'm just thinking
not
of
in
football.
football.
No,
right?
But in basketball.
Okay,
yes.
I was going to say it's a huge tournament. It's a lot of teams. We complain all the time about expanding playoffs for other sports, but this one is huge. But it's structured well. It's fun to watch. It is cool to see the upsets. I always fill out a bracket, and it always gets blown up like the first weekend, and then I can just enjoy the games for what they are. But I always root for underdogs, and that's what's fun.
too.
Josh, why do you suppose Warren Buffett offers, $10 million?
$10 million
for somebody with a
perfect bracket.
It ain't ever going to
Oh,
happen.
yeah.
So who's your pick going into the tournament, Ned?
For a national champion?
Yeah.
Gee, it's really ridiculous to even pick anybody. You go to the top level of the rankings right now, and you look at a Gonzaga, and I've seen them play many times, and they're really, really, really good.
And
Gonzaga,
they're chokers in the tournament, too.
Yeah, they
and
are
they
always.
have not, once, they won a national championship. But then you have the others. Duke hasn't played very well. Kentucky hasn't, they're not even playing for their championship.
Right.
Tennessee is. Tennessee has a nice ball club. It really could be, quite literally, any team, including some team you may have never heard of before that would get in there.
Kansas has a good team this year.
KU is they're the Big 12 conference champion. They're also nationally ranked, but they've been very inconsistent.
Yep.
They'll win. They'll get up there, probably the Sweet 16, maybe the Elite 8, and that's when things get very dicey.
John, you?
I'm still a traditionalist that goes with the experience factor, and these kids have 4 years, so the more they play in the tournament, I think the better they're equipped to succeed. I have a hard time betting against Gonzaga, but as Ned said, the parity, that's what makes the tournament great. The parity in the NCAA in men's basketball is so finite. I mean, any team could win this, get on a hot streak, and that's what it's about. It's about who goes into this tournament on a hot streak and gets warm on fire during this tournament.
Let me ask you this, Josh, because you're, of course, an Alabama fan when it comes to football. Do you think in a season like this where you see most of the top-level teams having, 5, 6, 7 losses, that there's not that team that's got 1 or 2 losses or maybe undefeated, that hurts the game a little bit as far as the casual fan goes?
Maybe for the casual fan. I mean, I think more casual fans like the underdog status, so they want to see the number one lose during the regular season.
Yes.
And so when you've had a lot of that rotation all season in college this year, where the number one team's not the number one team for more than a week, and so it makes it harder to pick a true favorite to win the tournament. But yeah, I actually enjoy that. I think that's great. I'm going to say this: I think Duke's going to win it because it's Coach K's swan song, and sports are rigged. But I'll tell you a sleeper team that might go far in the tournament is Arkansas.
Oh, yeah.
They're not a sleeper. They're really good.
They've beaten everybody that was good this year.
Yeah, a sleeper team, I'm glad you brought that up too. If I had to pick a sleeper team, it would be one that you guys have probably never heard of that's playing for their championship right now, as a matter of fact, and that's Davidson.
Oh,
they are just exactly the kind of team that can go in there. Bob McKillop has been their coach forever and ever and ever. He recruits exactly his kind of players, and they aren't big and bulky and power. They're all perimeter shooters, and they're good perimeter shooters. That's the kind of team that can get hot, go through 6 games, and get right up there and give teams absolute hell.
Who's your sleeper team, John?
Oh, my sleeper team this year. That is hard to say since I paid such little attention to the regular season. Honestly, I could see any team out of the MVC always seems to do well. So to be honest, I think that's your underdog. They seem to step up to and Loyola's been there. Sister Mary will be in attendance, I'm sure, if she's still on this planet.
Billion years old, yep.
She's there. So, I mean, they're a good team, and they've shown they can knock off some big schools.
All right. Well, there you go. You've got our sort of picks as we go into the tournament. The show is on tonight. Don't forget, we're going to be out at Marty's Sports Bar all this weekend, starting on Thursday. That'll be our home for the NCAA tournament. Make sure to join us on South Campbell, right across from the Super Center. We'll be back in a minute to wrap up Ned Talk.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave. A proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
My biggest disappointment with the whole end of the players and owners negotiations is I really expected a frenzy of activity with baseball, and there's not been. It's been there's been more of a frenzy of an activity with football. That's why we started it today. But let's talk about the Cardinals for a second. Where are their needs at? Free agencies out there. What do you think they're looking for?
Well, they're looking for a DH right now because the DH will be in the National League. Incidentally, we didn't mention in baseball, one of the little side notes that didn't get mentioned was a change in the All-Star game.
That's right.
Did you see that? No extra innings in All-Star games anymore. If a game ends in a tie, you go to a pre-selected home run derby.
Yes.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
It will be. Yeah.
Well,
It doesn't take the place of the original home run derby.
No.
That remains in effect. But they'll get the top sluggers and decide it on a home run derby.
I love it.
But what do the Cardinals need? I think they need to look at a DH. I think their pitching staff is probably in pretty good shape. Has some help in the bullpen and a little bit of help up the middle in the infield.
Who are they looking at? Do you know?
Do not know.
I know they signed a middle relief pitcher yesterday that had been pitching in Japan for the last few years. He's a 6'6" righty or 6'6".
Vander Hayden or Vander
Hagen, I believe. Yeah. So he could be. They've done well with those picks from there. They are looking at Albert Pujols. They're one of 3 teams negotiating with him right now to come back as the DH, which would be fantastic in my opinion.
Do you really? I don't.
I'd just like to see him go out with Molina and Wainwright. I'm a sentimental guy. And then they are looking at middle relief help still. They're not looking for anything up the middle, Joe, at all. So they feel pretty confident with Edmundo Sosa backing up Paul DeYoung. DeYoung did an extensive hitting clinic with one of the best in the nation over the offseason.
Charlie Lau?
And he's guaranteed them, and they feel comfortable where he's at. And then they've got Edman and Gorman likely at second base. So they're pretty good there. You're not going to see wholesale changes. They're not going to get any big names. Joe Kelly was a name they thought about. He went off the market very quickly. They're going to be looking at middle relievers for the most part.
That Charlie Lau joke was good for everybody over the age of 50. Everybody else was like, well, what's he talking about there?
You'd have to go to the mausoleum to get him.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he made a movie. You can watch that movie that he's in.
On hitting skills?
Well, what was the name of that movie? I can't think of it. It was a Neil Simon movie, and it was about this guy who was a con artist, and he got back into his daughter's life, and his grandson played baseball and was not very good, so he brought in Charlie Lau to instruct him on hitting. And I remember going to see that movie as a kid and walking away with some tips. So if you want to look that up, Matthew Broderick's in it. It's chasing somebody. I can't remember the name of it right now. I just can't honestly remember anything anymore.
I can't remember it either.
Baseball's back, which is just to me is just the best thing. I am really excited about it. Our sister station will be carrying the St. Louis Cardinals again this year, so I'm excited for them that they have that back and that we'll be talking about the Cardinals and of course the love of my life, the New York Yankees. We'll be talking about them some a little bit too. I'm disappointed that they have made 0 moves too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of big names that are still out in the market right now, and I think it would be detrimental to the sport further if those guys don't get signed, get into camp as soon as they can, and we don't have this big drag out that we've had the last couple of years of baseball.
Did I just hear you say that right? The love of your life. Your wife just walked in the door and you said the Yankees are the love of your life?
It's okay, I'm second.
She's accepted it. She knows. She knows. So I've been with the Yankees longer than I've been with her. So. What about you, Josh? Any thoughts on free agency? I mean, I know you don't follow baseball that much. I always put you on the spot with these baseball questions.
I want to follow baseball more this season, but my Cubs are going to be terrible because they did a fire sale at the end of last season. They got rid of everybody.
Where's Bryant going to go? Like, stumping in Philly, which wouldn't bother Ned at all.
Not at all.
I wouldn't rule out a reunion in Chicago either.
Neither would I.
At all. And they did pick up Andrelton Simmons yesterday, who's a really good shortstop.
Okay, that's good.
I'm hoping the Yankees will re-sign Rizzo. He played very well for them last year.
What happens to Luke Voigt?
I think Luke Voigt goes on the trading block because I like Luke Voigt. I like the story. I like that he played here. I like that he's from Missouri. I like his bat, but he is right-handed in an overly right-handed team that is a left-handed ballpark.
Yep.
He doesn't hit to the opposite field very well, and he's been extremely injury-prone. And I think the Yankees decided midway through last year he is not the answer. That's why they've been in on the A's first baseman. And that's why they've been in on Freddie Freeman. They've been in on every first baseman out there.
Yep.
But in a 60-game COVID season, he hit 22 home runs.
He did.
Fantastic.
Wow. I can't deny that I love Luke Voigt. And I wish that I feel like he should be the answer to the Yankees, but he's been very hurt.
Yes.
In his time with them. And I think that's been the key. Yep. Well, guys, next week, hopefully we'll talk about some signings. We'll have the first two rounds, close to the first two rounds under our belt. Maybe the Chiefs will have some news for us. Until then, Ned, be safe.
Always, thank you.
Enjoy the warm weather. John, I'll see you next week. Josh, we'll see you next week.
You betcha.
Thank the intern, Corbin Campbell, Nick Fury, and our friend Brian Tyndall. We'll see you next Sunday for Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.